Hello and welcome to another episode of the DigiTeacher Digest. This week I'll be chatting to Jeanette Viljoen, who is my colleague in the junior school here at Radine in Johannesburg, South Africa. And we'll be talking about ICT integration, what happened during COVID, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Hi Jeanette, I'm glad you could make it, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about the many roles that you fulfill at Radine as HOD of technology, or is it ICT?
ICT. A little broader than just technologies.
Right. So I take it that role kind of fulfills two hats. One is teaching students about digital technologies, and the other is holding the hands of teachers as they struggle to integrate technology. Which of those? Which of those roles?
Oh, sorry. No, you go, sorry.
No, I'm asking you which of those roles you prefer.
Oh, I'm going to step on a lot of toes, but honestly, I think as rewarding as it is to guide teachers, students, those little faces that light up when they get something right or when they realize that they control a computer or a robotics device, that for me is the win. I've tried for 3 years to just do teacher training, and I really, really missed the student part of my role. So hence I came back to teaching. Yeah.
So where were you working before?
I spent actually 6 years at radio school. I was head of technology integration there, head of technology curriculum integration. I left there at the end of 2016 to move on, and I worked for Think Ahead, now known as iStore Education. I worked for them for 3 years. I'm also a certified Apple professional learning specialist, so I do a lot of coaching and facilitation for Apple on how to use and integrate the iPads, Macs. Everybody can code, everybody can learn those curriculums into our teaching and everyday subjects and teaching and learning. And then in beginning of 2020, very infamous here, I joined the Radine team, and I was very, very excited to return. Funny enough, I did a lot of staff training here at Radine. So I knew the school and I knew the staff of the junior school quite well before I started. And my position was actually, or the fact that I accepted the position when Sue Price retired was announced in one of my training sessions here. So I fell in love with the school long before this was even a possibility for me to join. And I love every minute of it. We honestly have one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever experienced.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Now Apple specialist and Radina Microsoft School.
Very much, but you know what? I think if you have an Apple device and Microsoft running on it, you've got the best of both working together very, very well. It's a little different, and you need to sometimes navigate differently on a tablet, but a tablet will always have more limits or a limited version of the app as we'd have on a desktop. But for what we do in primary school and with early learning stages, that's more than enough to start getting your students to really cover the basics and get to know technology, learn how to use the apps, store things in the cloud, which is a very abstract concept for that age, especially at 6 or 7. You look at a cloud, you think it's something in the sky that brings rain. To start understanding that, no, we actually refer to a server. What does a server look like? It's not really a cloud. It's a room somewhere with all these big machines that keep all our information there on it. And what does it do with it? It's a very abstract concept for them to understand. So I think when you start introducing and building blocks, a tablet is a really nice end with a smaller version of the app to start showing students what they can do and then building on it when you move them onto a full, Office 365 environment when they get to grade 4, 5, and 6 and start showing them a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're very brave to teach such young people. Forgotten passwords.
Oh, yes. Bane of my existence. No, we run after passwords a lot, I'll be honest with you. And you know what? You feel like a hypocrite because we'll tell them, okay, write it in your diary. No, madam, you said it should be secret. It should be super secret. And it's so funny when I teach, they always say, when I say enter your password, the super secret one, I say yes. Okay. So it really it's teaching digital literacy, digital citizenship throughout all the things that you're using in computer science to make sure that they understand that, you know what, there is some ethics that I need to follow. I need to keep my account safe. I'm responsible if someone's sending messages on my account because it's my name, it's my reputation. But I made them write it down in their diaries, which was a big mistake. They called me on it and they said to me, no, you told us never to write it down. It needs to be here. But they don't keep it here. So we have little login cards. It depends on the class. Every year there's different strategies that I keep in play for them. You know, you learn very quickly to read your audience so young. But funny enough, they're really good at remembering facts and figures and phone numbers. These days, I don't even think I know my husband's phone number off by heart because it's on contacts. So students are much better at, especially younger students than older students and us adults.
Yeah, I don't think I know my own phone number. How often do you phone yourself? Yeah.
True.
So to get back to sort of coaching adults, how have you found the uptake of IT amongst particularly junior school teachers? Are they keen? What use are they putting it to?
I'm smiling because for COVID for many people was the end of many things. But for me, it was the start of an absolute EdTech integration explosion. Because teachers who in past have been absolutely petrified and don't want to touch it are suddenly catapulted into this world where that is the only choice you have if you want to teach and keep your job. You're going to have to reach your students. And what was quite nice about us in lockdown in 2020 was I had the opportunity to really spend one-on-one time and coach teachers. And what happens as well, I think where I find my coaching works best is when a teacher comes in with a lesson plan that they've used for years and years and years, and they work out with an educational technology integrated lesson plan. So they take something they would have used in any case in the next week or so, they learn how to use technology tools and apply it to that. And with COVID and lockdown, that's exactly what we had to do. I had the opportunity to work in smaller teams of teachers. And funny enough, I know in all our EdTech groups, everybody always brings up the conversation about how do we leverage this? How do we keep this going? And that was my biggest worry coming back to a normal life where we can, have class again, we in person, will it fall away? We're using school-owned iPads in the junior school, and they are never in their lock cages. We struggle to keep them charged. Since we've been back in 2021 and 2022, teachers are using technology and they're using it meaningfully. It's not just to tick a box and say, yes, we wrote our essays in Word. It's so much bigger than that. So I think because people were forced, they saw the magic. And that really is it. I think with technology integration, you need to experience the magic. You need to see your students come to light. Because every conversation I had from 2020 with our teachers here was, I have never seen student A perform like this. She cannot write something in a book, in words. She cannot explain to me what she understands in written language. However, put her on a video and she does this amazing experiment. I'm using it as a teaching resource for future years. So we're seeing a different side of students. We're giving them different levels of explaining what they understand. We're using different tiers. And I think teachers really noticed that and they understood the value of it and they kept leveraging it. So I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to be part of a team who's willing to try and experiment. And there's pitfalls. There's sometimes where we try something new, it doesn't work at all. And there's other times where we try something new and we cannot believe that we've been doing it the old way for so long until we implement a new app. But at the end of the day, you really want to inspire students to show you what they've done. So you want them to create content, not just us standing in front of the class giving them all this content. And I think teachers also realized that by having students use technology to give back their understanding and to formulate their knowledge and work through the tiers of Bloom's taxonomy on technology and give that on a platform that they enjoy, where they publish their knowledge, we are doing less and our students are actually interacting with the content that they need to learn and they're learning through doing, which is what Piaget and everybody wanted us to do, our constructivists. So suddenly the science of teaching is really falling into place and we as teachers are evolving into facilitators of learning. And we can assess and we can engage and we can give our one-on-one time. Even recording now, I've got teachers who still pre-record some of their lessons and explanations and play it in class. But what they have done essentially is they're cloning themselves, and they now everybody can watch the video, learn. I have time to walk around, and my students who need extra explanation or one-on-one time can have that time with me. I'm not bound to the front of the class for my whole group. I can divide and conquer on different, competency levels, and I can really start differentiating my teaching and helping them, reach their own outcomes and not be bored. If they can get it in one go, let them do that and give them extension work. Technology is great with that. And also marking. Isn't marking just so much easier when technology automates it for you? I do not own a red pen. I do not own a red pen. So, and I don't mark in other colors. Honestly, it's either digital or it is, quizzing like Kahoot or forms, self-marking forms. And there's so many different ways, watching videos and having rubrics that you can fill in, really just looking at different tiers of understanding. And I love a good rubric because my students get that rubric as they get their assignment. So they know exactly what I want from them at the end. And they have to assess themselves. And before they hand it in, they have to tell me, these are the boxes I've ticked. So that self-regulation as well, I think is so important because we really are teaching a generation with social media and instant gratification. When I click a button and someone brings food to my door, I can anonymously put a comment on anything, give my opinion about anything. But also sometimes I need to take a step back and look at what does that look like? And I think that's a step that our generation misses, or the new younger generation coming in that we're teaching. I think that sometimes often they don't really think of, okay, I've done this, I've posted this, I've published this, now what? What's the outcome? And I think with cancel culture and all these viral campaigns that's happening, people's work or videos being put into memes, students really need to start thinking about what they put out there. And I think the rubric just teaches them to say, okay, before I press send, let me check. Does this fit a specific scenario or criteria that my teacher has asked of me or what the world is asking of me before I publish it?
I think particularly sort of at that upper junior level, into sort of grade 8 and 9, students are really struggling with social media. They don't really have the maturity to be able to cope with so much exposure and power. So how have you found battles with around social media in the school?
It's very much
banning it or
with social media. Look, luckily the students that I teach are under 13 until sort of mid grade 7, then we start struggling with that. So that I can use as an out in many cases where you are too young for this. Yeah. Ethically, legally, you should not be signing on for Facebook. You are not 13 years of age. You should not even have an email address that's not managed by an educational institution. However, we cannot just be ostriches and put our heads in the sand. We need to address this coming, from the beginning. Oftentimes we use scare tactics and case studies where you can show where things have gone wrong. There's various videos and things that I show them of where parents would work with Kobe O'Brien, for example, and they would pretend that he is a 13-year-old boy chatting up this 13-year-old girl, and now they meet online and the parents are waiting in the car and this child almost gets abducted, or it's a scenario where they act it out just to show her how bad it could have gone. I don't want to put our children through that, but I do show them content like that so they understand how quickly it goes wrong. Something as bizarre as you posting a photo of yourself still wearing your school uniform, or just having the insignia of your school logo somewhere in a ribbon on your school bag or something, you give away your daily location. And the minute I start explaining that to students, we bring up photos of different students and I can tell them exactly, this is where I can find this student. I just find random things online. Their eyes go open and they start thinking about things differently. We also show, Emma Sadler's work always comes to play in these sessions. And there's so much out there, so many people who does amazing talks around this and content. But I think you need to keep revisiting what can go wrong, and you need to show them real life examples. And most of the time they've heard of it on social media, they've seen it. But we need to be very transparent. Things go wrong, and we need to also include our parents on these discussions and educate parents. Oftentimes we'll send out letters where there's, for example, Bark, which is a phenomenal app. I think Siri listens to me all the time. Because over December holidays, I had a chat with my husband about how worried? How can we monitor what they do? How would you know if your child is being targeted by a cyberbully, for example, or if your child is starting to use emojis as a sexting method, for example? And believe it or not, our students understand those messages much better than we do because they've been exposed to it and they talk about it and they chat. There's always the older student who has older siblings somewhere who has just way too much information and tells everyone Santa Claus doesn't exist, etc., etc. And suddenly this started coming up on Instagram and Facebook. Bark, phenomenal app that really has an AI that reads through messages, has flags to flag certain messages. You need to inform your parents. I think at the end of the day, even our teachers, you don't know what you don't know. And I have learned so much from having conversations with students about things that have gone wrong, where students also, I build a trust relationship. I really want my students to be able to come to me and say, Madam iPad, this happened. I saw this on Instagram, or this person's contacted me on Roadblocks. What should I do? And for parents as well, to coach them and say, your first reaction, yes, I know you're shivering inside, because it might be a groomer attacking your child or targeting your child. But at the end of the day, be calm and approach them with kindness so they keep coming back to you for advice. You know, we should empower our children and the younger generations. We should not shame them, because we did not grow up with social media. Thank goodness I didn't have it at varsity. I don't think I would be employable, because I would have posted stupid things. We didn't know where Facebook was going. I was actually quite slow to adopt any social media as it started, even though I've always been fascinated by it and by technology. But at the end of the day, I think also we're taking away a certain level of waiting for gratification when we've got social media. So there's other methods and other teaching that we need to bring in. And pen and paper still needs to have its place. So it's always that balance. And there's no clear answer. There's no right way. But we need to talk about things that have gone wrong. You need to be transparent about it. And I learn from parents. I learn from students. And I put that back into the community as much as I can whenever we have conversations. And I always encourage parents as well, please, let's speak. Let's talk about this. Clear rules. I don't think a device should be in the bedroom charging at night with the child while your child's sleeping. I'm very avid, a 7 to 7 rule. To quote Linda Bradfield, who mentioned that to me years ago, from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., that device is in your parents' room. It's charging there, it's fine, you don't need it. Because if you look at stats as well, most cyberbullying happens in the early morning hours, 1 a.m., 3 a.m. Why is a child of 11 or 12 not asleep then? And you know what? It's not just about your child being a victim. Your child might be doing it because it's a seen and copied behavior. Children really do copy a lot of what they see. And if you think about 13 Reasons Why, all these Netflix series coming up, all your high school dramas, we've got primary school students, girls 11, 12, 13 up watching these, imitating what they see because the cool girl, the mean girl is doing it on the movie. So let me do it. They got away with it. And they don't really understand that real people have real consequences as yet. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware that oftentimes it's not mean-spirited. It is absolutely just mimicking or acting out, or being, pulled along by a friend who knows a little bit more than you do. So we need to really teach that actions have consequences. And at a young age, I feel the consequences doesn't need to be so dire. It doesn't need to follow them around for the rest of their lives. But they need to understand that digital footprint gets built now already. I would make a grade 1 Google themselves. I would make a grade 1 Google their parents. And you'd see those eyes go big. Oh, there's a picture of my dad. Oh, here's a picture of my grandmother. And then you start explaining how social media profile pictures work and how it's public domain. And, I'll Google myself in front of a class and I'll show them, this is what comes up about me. What do you think about me? And I always get the feedback, oh, you are so brave, madam, to show this to us. And I said, but I'm very careful. I'm very, very careful. And as I learn more, I keep going back and cleaning up my social media from years back. You need to do that. You need to be very, very careful about what you put out because anybody can find things in different ways. Doesn't matter how you think you've locked up your account. And these privacy settings change, rules change, and you need to try and explain that to them. They understand. Students understand that technology changes very quickly, but they need to understand that the legalities around it's also changing very quickly. And it goes down to scare tactics again and consequences.
Yeah. What do you feel about I've heard the view expressed that schools need to, and some schools do, install monitoring software where you can see what's on the student screens and so on. And we had that, the network administrator brought it in as here it is, this is fantastic software, installed it on all the computers. And within a couple of weeks, I had disabled it completely because I found that there were huge trust issues. Students were starting to say, okay, they're surveilling us, that's it, we're closing up, and then it goes somewhere else, and you have no ways of reaching them or having these types of conversations.
I think you've touched on something, that trust relationship, and that for me is important, but I'm 50-50. It really depends on the context of where you're using it and for what. I think within an exam environment, absolutely. Yeah. I think if devices are being used when students are not under adult supervision. So, for example, if it's an in-between lesson in the afternoon after school until sports starts, you do want to be wary. I think firewalls and putting measurements in place to make sure that the wrong things don't come through is maybe better, and teaching them to stop, snap, and share. So the minute they see something they're not comfortable with, take a screenshot, discuss it with an adult that you trust. However, I love Apple Classroom, for example, because on that, I get little snapshots of how my students process and think. It's not me playing spy, it is me watching in wonderment and awe as how they complete their tasks and come up with a solution to a problem that was posed to them. However, there are times where you do need it. And I think there's also groups, I think they need to earn it. I think their actions need to earn a spyware. Well, not a spyware, but something that monitors what they're doing. If they've shown a tendency. But also then again, you're making everybody wear the same size shoe. Not every student behaves the same way. Some are more mature, some understand it better. Others make mistakes because they haven't had the guidance that they need. If you think about it, I've been teaching the girls here now for 3 years. So if they started with me in grade 0, they are in Form 1 right now. If a new girl comes in, she hasn't had that exposure yet, or that instructions maybe from another teacher, or have worked through the curriculum that we're working through. So I need to either catch them up very quickly, or if they make mistakes, I need to understand the context behind that as well as to why those mistakes were made. So it really does depend on the scenario or the grade, the class that you're teaching, what you're trying to achieve through it. But I think more often, monitoring software, I think, is better just to watch how they process for us to assess and to guide and facilitate the learning process. But oftentimes as well, you need it. There are times when we, for example, in exams, or when you start introducing them to YouTube, because oftentimes in primary school, I prefer YouTube for kids. And quite often I won't send them onto YouTube. I will actually just embed the link and just show that to them with everything blacked out, because we all know the thumbnails on the side is quite hairy, no man's land. We don't want any student to go just to ponder around on their own. So Dorian, I don't have an exact answer for you for that. But I think we need to hack it a little bit and not necessarily use it for what it was intended. I think we can just use it to watch and observe the learning process and guide. So, for example, where I use Apple Classroom quite often in grade 0 and grade 1 is to just open the same app for everyone. Especially in the beginning of the year, with little grade 0, they can't read, I can't tell all the colors, it's very new. That just speeds up the lesson a little bit to make sure that we're all in the same place. But it's not necessary for me to watch and name and shame and wag that finger at them.
Yeah. I suppose the general principle that would be useful to follow there is, as you get older, you should be given more trust and more independence, and the monitoring should be less. Just to get back to the whole question of COVID and so on, I would imagine that, especially in a primary school, going online must have been totally fraught experience. You've got young kids. How do you get them online? So for how long basically were they at home and online, and how did you try and reach them?
In 2020, our Form 1s or grade 3s were online for almost 6 months.
Sure.
And we are noticing, and this is predominantly across schools when you speak to teachers in that age group, so they are now grade 5. social issues. So what happened is these students were alone at home on a screen. They did not learn to navigate friendships because, you know, in grade 3 and grade 4, friendships break up, so, you know, it changes. Everybody finds their feet. They're really starting to find their more young adult personality and interests, and groups change. That didn't really happen in that year when they were in lockdown for so long, because they were also one of the grades to come back last out of everyone that was allowed to come back. And
Crazy.
even then, it
Crazy. They should have been the first. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the younger students, I think they really needed human interaction, because I think we forget how much sort of underlying soft skills are being taught just by being on the school grounds every day between other people, learning to share. Now, you can imagine if you're an only child, you're learning at home, mom and dad is in lockdown in their rooms trying to keep their jobs and keep this life going, find food online and you know, clean the house on your own. You've never done that. You don't have the support that you used to. I think that child is being, okay, you're at school now, you're online, just stay at the screen for a little bit. You've got that. And no offense to any parents, we were all coping. Honestly, if I had children in lockdown, I don't think they would have been okay at all, because all I did was work, you know, because we had to. So at the end of the day, we're really seeing social issues coming through because the students didn't learn to play with each other or collaborate effectively in person. So that's really where remediation is coming back in, and we just have to have little intervention programs to fix it. It's not unfixable. However, I think you can very easily get lost online if you're quiet, because the loudest voices are heard. If you speak over someone, doesn't matter how many times the teacher mutes you, you'll unmute yourself. So that was quite disruptive. However, in 2020, I think as a team lead on this, I got it a little wrong, but in 2021, I learned from my mistakes. And in 2021, when we realized we're going to start the school year online, we had a Saturday school just before we were forced to be off campus. And we had all our grade 0, grade 1 parents and all our new parents coming in. And we showed parents how to use the tools that we were using online.
Right.
And we gave parents content, and parents who couldn't make it, we made extra appointments, or we sent video tutorials and things home to really support them. And that's at the end of the day. A grade 0 needs a different approach online than a grade 7 or grade 8 would have. So also what we did is, and this is with collaboration, it's not just me coming up with a solution. Grade 0 teachers came to us and said, our grade 0s cannot dial in on different lessons all day. We will dial the specialist teachers in as it's your turn to teach them. We have one call all day. A parent can put their child in front of that screen. That screen stays on. We announce breaks. The screen stays on during breaks. The kids can go run around, do what they need to do. So you control it a little bit differently. And I think we very quickly learned how to approach every grade and every age group a little bit differently. But you need to involve your parent body. They need to understand what tools we're using, and most importantly, why we are using these tools.
Yeah.
I find that the minute I explained, we went with Microsoft because of data security, of privacy, of the IP belonging to the school. Then they understand and they walk away. You know, then they won't come and say, oh, but this brand is easier to use, or this specific brand I prefer because that's what I use at work and that's what I know now. You know, they understand that we are looking at their children at the age that they are at and what they need from this tool and how we're mishmashing it. So, for example, for grade 0 as well, Teams is quite complicated for them to, you know, do assignments on. So, but it's a brilliant video conferencing tool, and it was safe for us to use. Then we added Seesaw to it. And we very quickly taught the students how to split screen. You'd be amazed how a 5-year-old can split a screen in the school. So it's little skills, soft skills that we had to learn. But unfortunately, last year, we really had to depend on our parents, especially for grade 1s and grade 0s who started online or started their school career online. You know, I think a parent can take more in and be a support there. And then also know, they got to know me. So parents were able to contact me and ask for help when they needed it with technology, because some people are Luddites and they would very, very readily admit it. And unfortunately, this new modern COVID world has pushed us into having to use technology. So we need to support those adults as well who have to support their children. You know, you need to think of that ecosystem all the time and look at every little part of that circle of life that you've got to make sure that everybody's taken care of.
I mean, I get the sense generally that, you know, from things like conferences to a greater willingness to work from home and things like that are, this has really catapulted us into an awareness of many of the affordances of technology. Technology can allow things to be done in different ways. So I remember, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I was saying, well, why don't we organize debating online? And everyone looked at me as if I was mad. But if you think about it, a debate is, you could easily have it online. And 10 years later, teachers were coming up to me and said, I've just had this wonderful idea. Couldn't we organize a debate? I think, yeah. Okay, let's see what we can do. What a good idea. Well done.
But it's always a good idea if it didn't come from an outsider, if you came up with it on your own. So yes.
No, that's
and I think
EdTech integrators' nightmare,
Yeah, but I mean, as an EdTech integrator, I think we all learn that you need to charm people towards the answer. You can't just give it to them. That's how you get buy-in. When people come up with their own solutions, you show them various tools and then they choose what works best. I mean, I'm by no means a language teacher or a mathematics teacher. I do not know the subject. However, I know the technology. So it comes to your TPAC model as well. Now, your technology, your curriculum, and then your knowledge that you've got around it. And it's three parts of a triangle. And you know that rule that you can only get two sides of it usually. At the end of the day, you need to collaborate with the subject specialist. Look at how they would teach it. So, and I've seen this many times in training, and I've learned this from a colleague years ago. If teachers are coming to you for training and there's a little bit of a resistance towards technology, I'll often ask them, okay, you're teaching sounds or phonics to your class. How do you teach it? Show me. Show me what that lesson looks like. And then from there, I say, okay, what could we, according to Sam R., what can we move over? What can we augment? What can we modify? What can we redefine with technology? And then I start showing them how these frameworks work. And a teacher, I love frameworks. So the minute you start bringing in frameworks like SAMR, or you introduce TPAC, and people start understanding, okay, there's method behind the madness. It's not just throwing technology at everything. It's looking at how we've done things. It's updating it for modern society. Then you start winning people over slowly but surely. And then if you show automated marking, well, that's usually where I find everyone. A good Kahoot that gives you marks immediately and makes thinking visible from your class immediately, that's a big win usually. So just moving over from substitution to augmentation, showing them the difference between the different phases within that integration. And also, while we're on SAMR, I do want to mention this, and I've said this many times. Don't ever say, oh, I'm just substituting with technology. It's not just, it's substitution. And it's the same with your Bloom's taxonomy. Sometimes you have creation and sometimes you are working for understanding. And it's a taxonomy. There's levels of understanding. There's levels of creation. And the same with SAMR, there's levels of substitution. And at times, that is the correct tool for me to use to teach the content that I'm teaching. And that is what my students will respond to at where they are cognitively right now. And then they will evolve. Not every student is ready to just simply redefine and give you back some new type of content, Sometimes we need to take it slow with them as well and understand it. The biggest misconception is that all students are technology natives, that they get it, it comes to them. I don't believe in that. I think some students, it doesn't come naturally to them. We always laugh. I've got this joke. Students will raise their hand. My password's not working. I'll walk up to them. I'll say, okay, enter it again. And suddenly it works. And I said, okay, what was different? Now, my joke usually is they had my technology juju, my good juju next to them. So what we talk about, it's just that vibration, just that take a breath, think about it, do it. Because whatever goes wrong with technology is usually the link between the keyboard and the chair.
Yeah.
And that is the human element. So as soon as you understand it, I think that goes with coding as well. Coding and robotics teaches students that they can control technology, that we are in control of technology, and also looking at it in the world around us. A traffic light, that's an if statement. If this happens, then do that, action, reaction, or a command, and what do you do in return? The microwave at home, the lift at a hospital or a hotel, All these different things have buttons in it. And when I press the button, there's something happening in the background to make it do something. But taking that a step back and going offline, for example, we all trained to raise our hand in class. Is that not a type of coding and programming that's happening already? You were taught to show this gesture. Based on that gesture, you will get a reaction. And you can start an interaction. So to have students understand how it applies to real life as well in an abstract manner, I think it just brings everything together and it becomes real world learning. Yes, it's great to press buttons and make a robot dance and move around and have the B-bot, work through the maze because I told it where to go. But it's so much bigger than that and so much more than that students need to understand and understand that we are making the world what it is. Yes, there's technology out there. However, we still think for it. It always comes down to that argument. Artificial intelligence, I suppose, could get to that point, but can a computer or robot ever be more intelligent than its creator? If you really think about it, we teach it everything. And yes, you can teach it to teach itself, but still someone's coaching that machine to do certain things. And putting
the algorithm.
Yeah. Yes, that algorithm is it's all it's about every day. And you know what, my grade notes will very quickly tell you, an algorithm is a recipe to tell a computer or a robot what to do. And that's it. You need to break these concepts down. Very happy. And we repeat it. It's repetition. So to come back to social media as well, it's not a lesson that I've done once every year. It's not just a quick 1 hour, I've ticked it, we've reached the outcome. You have to repeat. You have to go back. Every time there's something on the news, every time there's something on the radio, when I hear a radio news report about something that happened online, I will go back and find it and show to my students because they probably listen to it in the car on the way to school as well. You need to link with real world examples that's around them. Will Smith slapping, the slapping incident at the Emmys. That's a great scenario for, once again, how one action overshadows all the other good that has happened at that event. How do you link that with technology? How do you bring that about? Why do we know about that? It's because of technology. So, it's your reputation. You can link it again. And linking things with popular culture for especially grade 4 to grade 7, you've got them. They're on the front of their seats. They cannot get enough of this example. They want to learn more. So it's just often I'm always looking around my environments and their environments, linking with movies that they like. Whatever Disney character right now is it. We link it, we bring it in, and we link that with what I'm trying to teach them, because that's how you get them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've all this noise in the background. Someone has booked the space and has just brought it past him. So,
I'm not hearing anything, so it's cancelling it quite well on my side for you.
Yeah, I just feel that one of the main reasons that why teaching IT is so important. I mean, generally in terms of digital citizenship, end user applications, and coding and robotics, is to give students agency over digital spaces. If I'm happy if they just leave school firm in their belief that they are the ones in control and that their humanity is intact. They're not the victim of technology. That if something goes wrong, they have a clue of what to do with it. And I think that's the most important skill overall to preserve our humanity. I don't know what the future of AI is going to be, but I really fear a sort of fascist dystopia of surveillance and and control through technology.
Yeah, and if you also look at, for example, bias in AI, who puts that in? It's us. It's our biases. It's the human bias coming through. So can AI ever be better than us as humans? Discrimination, it happens. It's there because we, unfortunately, unconsciously pass it on. But beyond that, Dorian, I think also what's a very, very important skill is to learn how to use technology to ask questions that we need answers for. Using Google, for example, it's an amazing resource, but understanding also how to validate sources, how to check sources, and something big that I think you're talking about that. what you put your like on, that thumbs up sign, what does it actually mean? You know, that's me endorsing something. You know, it's so much bigger than just going through a feed and liking funny stories. It's understanding that I'm putting my name next to that, approving it, saying, yes, I like that content. It's worth watching. And I
often
think
without watching the content.
Often, exactly, or sharing an article without actually reading what's in it. You know, I mean, you hear about news or school newsletters going out with articles in it going to absolute obscure links because links haven't been tested. We need to be very, very careful. We need to make students aware of that as well. You know, we need to be stingy with our shares, with our likes. It's really, it's me giving my stamp of approval. And I wouldn't have done it in person in a live conversation. Why am I doing it online? Well, I wouldn't have wasted my time with that nonsense but still I'm doing it. And I think students need to understand that it's all full circle, it's all part of it. But again, to come back to COVID, I think what we've learned is, as amazing as technology is, we as humans or social creatures, we need each other. Believe me, I'm a hermit. I love being at home. I love locking myself up, being alone. I have my dogs next to me and I can do online courses for days. But suddenly I'm really looking forward to in person because 2 years of this is enough now. And we've seen it with our students as well. We need that social skills and we cannot practice that through a screen. Well, it's very different.
Thank you, Jeanette. I've taken up much more time than than I asked from you, and thank you so much. Your views are, I think they not only align with mine, but I think they address some of the crucial issues in the technology education space at the moment. So thank you very much. A really interesting interview.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dorian. I'm very humbled that you asked me to come on for this, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, not at all. Okay. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, share the content, and by all means hit that notification bell to make sure that you never miss another episode.